Welcome, welcome. It is another episode of the Away Days, and as it's been billed as a huge game for either side this weekend. I thought it was only fair to get the opposition's view. So, welcome this week to Rich as part of the Villa pod. Thank you for coming on, mate. Really, really appreciate it.
No problem at all. Thanks for having me on, Pete. Looking forward to chewing the fat over a big, like you say, a big game coming up on the weekend.
Definitely, and obviously, really appreciate again. It was a lastminute.com getting you together. But yeah, I know you've been busy this evening, but really, really appreciate it. And like I said, we'll get into the meat of it in a second, but it's really weird. 2 games in, but it already feels like a big game for both teams. Do you think it's the same from your side of things?
Absolutely. I know we're going to talk about kind of the business and the sort of pre-season that Villa have had, but with the loss of Jack Grealish and kind of the last 2 seasons, the kind of tag of Villa being a one-man team and that kind of talk, it's big for Villa to get off to a winning start and kind of almost put that into the background to kind of say, we're a new club now, we've got new players, and the longer that goes on without us getting a win, it's going to keep rearing its ugly head, unfortunately, and hopefully, what better time and place to do it against our old mate Steve Bruce, coming back to Villa Park. So hopefully it can do us a favour.
Yeah, and you know what? We'll talk a little bit about Steve Bruce and his history at both clubs later on down the line. I've got a little something set aside for that. But you're right. It's been a kind of a difficult preseason, for you guys watching from the outside, and we'll touch on it a little bit. The away days sort of preseason. So, compared to last season where we were, it was kind of a rushed preseason because we were going into COVID, we were right in the thick of COVID. How has it been that sort of this season for you guys with, and I'll stick him on the screen there, the Jack Grealish saga.
Please don't.
And then everything. I know. I was gonna get a pic with him with the Man City top. Sorry, and I thought
I'd have been off. I'd have been leaving.
Nah, I wouldn't have blamed you. But obviously, with all of that as a bit of like a black cloud, sort of hanging over the Villa fans' heads, and maybe even the players as well. How has it been for you guys? Being right in the thick of that.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a topsy-turvy one, to be honest, because on one hand you can look at it and say, the loss of Jack and everything that goes around that, it was inevitable that it was going to happen at some point. We've been talking about it for the last 2, 3, 4 years of him leaving. It was just a shame that it seemed like Villa were on the up, and we're finally at a point where we think as a club we can start challenging for the European places, so to speak. And it just seems a shame that he's leaving at this point, but we move on and we go ahead. But with the transfers that we did and the signings that we made, the likes of Emi Buendia, Danny Ings, Axel Tuanzebe, and probably the biggest one for me, Leon Bailey. It's a massive signing for us. It's a marquee, in my opinion, a marquee player that we probably, Danny Ings was a huge shock, but Leon Bailey seems to be one that's, caught the headlines. And so in terms of those 3 signings and the way that we approached it, it's been really positive, and Villa fans have been really, really feeling really positive about those signings, because when you look at it on the face of it, the squad looks strong, now with, a guaranteed goal scoring in Ings to go with Watkins, Buendia with his creativity, and Leon Bailey with his pace. It's fantastic. But then on the other hand, you're right in what you're saying. There's been a little bit of a bit of disruption. Dean Smith had to isolate for 10 days because he was a close contact
Wow.
with someone in his family with COVID, so he was missing for 10 days of the preseason. You know, we've had players out at the Olympics, we've had players obviously at the Euros, we've had players at the Copa America, so they've come back in late. We've missed 2 preseason friendlies. And then there's been 2 coaches that have left. You know, John Terry left a few weeks ago, and then Richard O'Kelly, who was one of the assistant managers, he left 2 days before the Watford game. So there's been massive disruption with the team, and I think that culminated a little bit in the performance, particularly in the first half against Watford. So yeah, it's been a bit of a mix, and I'd say that the players are a little bit undercooked and haven't had the chance to play together as much or train together as much as probably Dean Smith would have liked.
No, and to be fair, with some of the coaching staff and others COVID related, I wasn't aware of that. So that's even more of a disruption, because they're the guys that, like you say, physically are going to get you guys ready for the season. So it sounds like it's even more of a sort of a disruption. But just the last point on the Grealish thing. You know, do you think his performances at the Euros kind of, you know, fast track this move to Man City? Because, you know, we were all, you know, supporting England over the summer, and we were so close to winning. And although he was sort of coming on as a sub, as an impact player, he was making that impact, and he was almost sort of dubbed the saviour at some points in the Euros with England. Do you think that kind of fast tracked Man City into saying, right, we need to get him now before he might become out of our price range?
Possibly. Although I kind of think that the England thing was more him like enhancing his brand and enhancing his image. Like, it wasn't his fault. He was coming on and he was doing what he was doing, but I think that got him kind of like the fans from other clubs kind of fell in love with him, so to speak, as part of the England team. And he almost became better the fact that he wasn't playing, and he became more important for England by not playing.
Right.
I actually think the deal was probably done before the Euros with Man City. I think it was probably done before. When they came out with the statement, it was like they put 100 million as a sort of a release clause that left it up to Jack as to whether he wanted to leave. This was when he signed the contract at the start of last season. And I think there was rumblings and rumours that it had already been met kind of before or during the Euros. So yeah, it may well have done. I think Villa were apparently talking to like Man United and 1 or 2 other clubs to try and see if they were going to come in and, I don't know, maybe start a bit of a bidding war or something. But, you know, City had stumped up the money, £100 million, you know, and they left it up to Jack, and he wanted to go.
Yeah, and you know, an opportunity to join the champions. It was always going to be a difficult decision for him, and seeing his sort of written statement and how he's been in the way he's talked about the club, you can tell it's sort of, he was sort of torn away really from the club rather than willingly sort of going. It was a big decision for him. But like you've said, you know, you've talked about your signings. You know, some of them have had a little bit more time to bed in. How have they been? You know, you've talked about the likes of Danny Ings, who was a very much a surprise sign. I think even to the journalists in the knows that you normally tell you this stuff 2 weeks before it happens. Nobody knew about this, and that was kind of a surprise deal. But the likes of Danny Ings, you know, Leon Bailey, Emiliano Buendia. I know a little bit more about Axel Tuanzebe because he was heavily linked with us as well. But how have they sort of settled in, and what are you kind of expecting from those guys this season?
Yeah, I think it's very, very early days. I think with Danny Ings, I think he's a little bit more, you know, I think he'll be able to hit the ground running a little bit more than maybe 1 or 2 of the others, because you know what you're getting is a guaranteed goal scorer. He's not going to really change his game too much. It's more about we're bringing him in to do specifically what he's good at. And if he can form a really good partnership with Ollie Watkins, then I think we've got a really exciting front two. So I'm expecting from him, you know, 12 to 15 goals. And I think if he can stay fit, certainly what he can bring. Buendia, we saw him in the. He had a fantastic season last season in the Championship, and then before that in the Premier League in a sort of poor Norwich side, he was still one of the big performers for them. So with him, which we're kind of looking at the creativity side that Grealish would have probably brought. We're probably looking for that from him, and he hasn't maybe played enough. He got a little bit of an injury over pre-season, and the first game that he played, I think we played Walsall in a pre-season friendly, and him and Ollie Watkins linked up together really well. But since then, they haven't played together properly since then. So, yeah, I'll just be expecting a bit of creativity and a bit of guile really from him, and hopefully being able to play those nice passes through to Ings and Watkins. And then Bailey, I think he's going to be the box office. I think he's going to be the player that we want to, that Villa fans want to pay to go and watch. Very much like Alan Saint-Maximin for you guys. I think he's got that X factor. Possibly a little bit more consistent with output. Looking at his stats for Leverkusen, he's he scored 14 last season, I think, and contributed with a number of assists. So I think he's got that ability when he gets in front of goal to just get his head down and strike it, and he's quite single-minded. But I think they've done good business, and we've got good options there. And like I said before, the last 2 years it's been basically get the ball and give it to Jack Grealish, and then if you want to play against Villa, you just put 2 or 3 men on him, and very often you'll nullify us, or it just has to take something amazing that he would have done. Whereas now, if Smith gets these guys firing, we've got 4 or 5 options that can really attack, plus options from the bench as well. So it's an exciting time, but it's just the pressure's on him a little bit to get it moving.
You're right. I agree. And I remember thinking that when we played you guys at St. James's Park at the back end of last season, in that Grealish obviously was injured in that game. And we were really happy about that. I remember talking on the match day lives and saying, with Grealish not there, they haven't really got sort of their talisman, and the rest can be stopped. But like you've said, you're building a team now, and it's sort of imperative for you guys that you bed those players in, like you've said, because you've got individually you've got very, very talented players that you brought in, and it's whether they can gel. And we didn't talk too much about Axel Tuanzebe, but he was heavily linked with Newcastle, and I went out on Twitter and I made a point of saying that I'd watch a little bit of him, from Man U, and when he was on loan at Lascelles at Villa before, because he's had a couple of loan spells before, and he's strong, pace, can be very commanding at the back, and he would have been ideal for us. But obviously with yourselves, you've got Mings and Konza at the back. So, unless you're playing a 3 at the back, which I don't think you did on Saturday, is he going to be first choice? Is he a squad player? Are they going to bed him in? What do you think that will look like?
I don't know. I mean, I really like him. I think he's an excellent player, and he's exactly as you've just said there, Pete. He was a Rolls Royce type defender for us in the Championship. Like, he was just way too good for that level, and I'm surprised that United have let him go, because even last season there was a lot of United fans sort of saying, when Eric Bailly was struggling and Lindelof was struggling, and even Maguire was struggling, there was a lot of United fans were saying, why aren't you playing Tuanzebe? Because he's got everything. The only thing that he maybe didn't have was the fitness in terms of playing games, but he played a consistent number of games for Villa in that spell when we got promoted. So yeah, he's a very, very good player. But with regards to at the moment, Mings and Konsa are the first choice. I mean, they didn't cover themselves in glory on Saturday. With Tuanzebe, I think he can play right back. It's not his favourite position, so he might be brought in as a bit of cover for Matty Cash, because we haven't really got another right back as cover. And then we did go through the season last season with we've got Courtney Hawes as a left-sided centre back. So Mings can go down with injury quite a bit, and there's times when you want to have like 2 right-sided central defenders and 2 left-sided central defenders. And we had Bjorn Engels last season as that right-sided. He was injured for a lot of the season, but I don't think Smith trusted him. So I think essentially he is coming in to put pressure on that first choice centre-back partnership. Sorry, and try and force his way in. But I am slightly surprised at it. I'm really pleased. But I guess if it had gone to you guys, he would have probably been guaranteed a start.
And you're right, he would have. And we're still looking for that centre back now. We've got experienced centre backs that are good in the air, that are sort of last ditch defenders in Fernandez, Lascelles, Dummett. We've got a little bit of sort of elegance in Shaw in that he's good on the board. He can bring the ball out. He can play a fancy long ball that splits the play. But we haven't got that natural youth at the back, that pace, that strength. Physically, Lascelles is a big guy, but actually on and off the board, he's not the strongest. But Tuanzebe, watching him, he has that. He's got that in abundance, and it's not a strange one or anything, but he would have played with us sort of week in, week out, and I think that's what Man United were looking for. They were looking to release him on loan, so he would play week in, week out. So it'll be interesting how that one works out. I mean, it would be partly our fault as well, because I think there was a hefty loan fee of around 5 million.
I think 5 million. I mean, I don't know what it says for Bruce, but he was the guy who signed him on loan originally. So
yeah,
whether he's like, well, I worked with Dean Smith and he got me promoted, or I'll go to Steve Bruce and he didn't play me very often, I don't know.
No, look. If it was me, and I had the choice between the two managers, I'd have made the choice that Tuanzebe made. I've got to be honest with you. But equally, I don't think us as a club would have paid that as a fee. We don't like paying huge loan fees. I remember a couple of seasons ago we haggled for the 2.5 million that we paid for Rondon's fee. We haggled for that for 2 weeks. It's just the times of our ownership, unfortunately. But we'll at this point we'll move on, because obviously you've got your main men that you're looking at to really sort of get you up the table this season. But thinking of those guys, and I imagine those guys that you've already talked about are going to be sort of the ones that we need to look out for on Saturday. From a Newcastle perspective, I know that Leon Bailey, I think, came off the bench. Do you think he'll start Saturday?
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. I mean, we've got Bertrand Traore got an injury in midweek. We had a behind closed doors friendly against Liverpool. I think it was on Sunday actually, and he got an injury, so he's out for 2 or 3 weeks. So that makes it more likely, even though Bailey would probably play down the left, that makes it more likely that Bailey will get a start. So yeah, I'm expecting them to go fairly all guns blazing, to be honest. First game in front of the home fans.
Is Watkins back?
Yeah, that's the rumours he's back. I think he was fairly close to being fit against Watford, but I don't think that he was 100%. They were talking about like fitness tests and all that, but I don't think they wanted to risk him. So yeah, I think Watkins is back. So I think Buendia, Bailey, Ings, and Watkins will play. I think he'll find a way to get them all in.
Okay. No.
Yeah.
I've got to be honest. I was kind of hoping you were going to say, no, I don't think Watkins will be back.
No. Yeah. We'll find a bit more out tomorrow, but Traore is definitely out. I mean, he may start with El Ghazi, but El Ghazi was so poor on Saturday, I think, and Bailey made such a difference when he came on. I think that he'll go for it. I think he'll. And then you don't sign Danny Ings to put him on the bench, so I think he's got to find a way to get them all in.
Definitely. I was hoping for a few more nuggets of positivity there, but we'll end it there. Okay, we'll look at the 2 threats. Okay, so from your perspective, and I know we talked a little bit before we came on live, from a Newcastle perspective. So who are the guys? And just before we go into this, obviously we talked about the fact that you are actually living in Newcastle. You're a Villa fan living in Newcastle. I don't know how you get away with that, because if you're living in Newcastle, you're not wearing black and white. They spot you out like from a mile away. So,
well, I've got black and white on today, so that's yeah. That keeps me that keeps me in disguise. Yeah.
But who
I mean,
do you think the big threats are?
Yeah, the obvious ones are St. Maximin and Wilson. Really, I think St. Maximin, if you get him on that first half against West Ham the other day, he was absolutely frightening. He was so good, and that setup for that goal. I mean, there's only really him that can do things like that in the whole league. There's only him that can do stuff like that. So, if he gets one or two good touches in the first 10 minutes, I think he's in for a good game. If he has a couple of 2 or 3 bad touches, then I think he's one of those players that his confidence drops a little bit. So yeah, he's obvious. And then Wilson, excellent striker. Obviously, Villa were in for him at the time when he chose Newcastle, and he's a Coventry boy, so he likes playing against the Villa and playing well against the Villa. So I was saying this on another podcast before. I was saying that him and Josh King, when they were at Bournemouth, absolutely terrorised us in that first season when we came back up. I think it was the first home game of that season, and they gave us an absolute torrid time. So he'll be up for the game. And then other one will be your new signing, mate. It'll be Willock. I think there's not many goal scoring midfielders. They're very, very hard to come by. And again, I was saying on another pod that they were telling me he's one game away, is he, from breaking the record or something? Is he got one more game? He's scored 7 in a row. But if he scores against Villa, he'll level it. So
that's right.
Yeah, they're hard to cut, and he's one of those players that he doesn't have a great involvement in the whole game or in every move, but he'll get into the box, and when he gets into the box, he converts chances, because he doesn't get that many chances, but every time he seems to get in the box, particularly towards the end of last season, he just scored every single time. So we've got to watch that, and of course, because if you've got balls coming in from St. Maximin and Wilson, running the channels, he's gonna pick up scraps. He's gonna get something. It's just for your guys' point of view, it's can you get enough of the ball to them? Is Bruce gonna be bold enough to go for the game? And I'm not 100% sure he will be, particularly being against Aston Villa, which is his old club.
You know what? You've made a great point there, and it is about being bold and kind of going for the neck, really, in these type of games. And it's these type of games he loses for that reason, because he'd rather protect a 0-0 or a 1-1 than actually say, you know what, let's go win the game. But actually, looking at those players, and the hope is that Willock starts. I think there was the Willie, won't he be registered in time for the Sunday game against West Ham? And I remember saying on Loaded Mag on earlier on this week that I was of the mindset that they purposefully didn't register him on time to ensure that he had a week's worth of training and he was ready and fit and firing to go on Saturday. But this is the thing, and for me, I agree with you. There are big 3 main threats. Wilson, ASM, and Willock.
Yeah,
and I think they all complement each other, because they all sort of work together. They all link together, but they all need each other, because when they're on their own and they're expected to do everything, each one of those individually, it can get too much for them. Too much is expected of them. But now we seem to be building an array of sort of attacking talent that, if ASM doesn't have a great game, Wilson can still turn up and Willock can still turn up. Or if Wilson's not having a good game or doesn't look like scoring, Willock can nick a goal. And we've not had that for quite a few years. So it'd be really, it's nice to have that sort of option and thinking, right, who's going to score today? Well, Wilson, because he's the only one that can. Now we've got, Willett can pop up late in the box and nick a goal. And ASM can always, like you said, produce a little bit of magic and create something for the team. But I was, just before we came on, I was watching, there's a sort of a couple of minute clip of Newcastle training from today. And obviously it's heavily focused on Willock, and just watching some of his finishing, both in the air and on the ground, is just fantastic. Like, we haven't had a midfielder like that for a long, long time. And it's just great to see. And he's an athlete as well. He will battle in that midfield. He'll get box to box. He will make the likes of John McGinn and who's your defensive midfielder? Came from
Nakamba.
Oh yeah, Nakamba.
Either Nakamba or Louise maybe could be in.
That was the one I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Because I know Nakamba played on Saturday, and they will know they're in a game with Willett.
Yeah.
He'll test them, and equally the other way around, they'll do the same. So I'm really interested in that sort of midfield battle with Willock in there on Saturday.
I'm just so surprised that Arsenal have let him go, to be honest. When you look at what Arsenal need and what they're like, I just can't believe that they've let him go. And for such a reasonable price. I mean, we talk about 25 million like it's nothing, but a reasonable price for a England under 21 and promising player.
The price in itself at 25 million is a shock to us. The fact that we've paid it, because we just don't do that. But it is a massive shock to us that it's even been allowed to happen. He's 21 years old. He's English. He's got the potential. I'm not saying right now, but the potential to be an England international, and he scores goals from midfield.
Exactly.
In half a season for us, he scored as many goals as Arsenal's whole midfield scored last season. I think that tells its own story. And I always look to the opposition who we're buying off in their reaction when a player gets sold to us, and there was absolutely nothing but sort of disappointment and well wishes to Willock. Lots of wishing that he was staying at the club, and lots of questions then pointed at Arteta for why they let him go. And like you mentioned as well, Rich, the price, it's crazy. But look, hey, I'm not going to complain.
No, exactly. Exactly.
I was kind of just rubbing my hands when it all got announced, because the typical Newcastle, it was agreed at 25 million, and everyone was jumping up and down. We were buzzing, and then there was about 4 or 5 days of nothing. And we were like, okay, is this even going to happen? Then there was a dispute about contracts, and we're thinking, here we go again, typical Newcastle. But we were kind of sigh of relief when it got done, and we were, really happy with that. So, yeah, you know what? It's going to be a tasty game with the threats from either side. We've got the players that we've both mentioned, yourself, from a Villa point of view, and Newcastle. There's some talented players in there. Some really talented players, so it will make for a really, really good game.
I hope so. I mean, looking at the last few games, it's been fairly low scoring the games, but there hasn't been that, like you say, that attacking talent on display, and obviously the last year or so there's been no fans, so you're hoping for a real sort of humdinger of a game, to be honest. And as you say, it could have the potential to be really end to end. I don't think it's going to be quite like that, because I think the way that the results went for both teams on the weekend, I think Bruce will probably try and stay in it, try and stay in the game, and try and nick it. I think if I'm thinking about him, and I think Villa will try and get out the blocks fast, for obvious reasons. So, but yeah, it's got the potential, mate. With like I say, with all the attacking players we've talked about, I could be saying that now and saying, there's not going to be many goals, and it could be like a 4-3 again.
Yeah. Give me some scores. Come on. Give me some predictions. What do you think it's going to be on Saturday? I've got an idea in my head.
I think. Okay, I think Villa will just sneak it 2-1. I think Yeah, I think we'll come out of the blocks. I think we'll get a goal, and I think you guys will probably equalise, and then I think the crowd having the fans back in, I think they'll just about get them over the line, and I think we'll just sneak it 2-1. But I think it'll be a good game. It'll be a very, very good game. What, go on then? What about yours? What's yours?
Okay, I'm going to go for a 3-2 Newcastle win.
Wow,
I've
that'll be
just
a
got
hell of a game.
I've got a feeling there's going to be some goals in this game. I really do. I think, like we said, with the players that we've mentioned, and there are one or two that we haven't. Jacob Murphy, from our side of things. You've got players from your end that we haven't even discussed. Louise can crack one from long distance. McGinn's a goal scorer from midfield. We've not even talked about those players. I've just got a feeling, both teams conceded a few goals last week, so I can't see it being anything other than a potential high-scoring game. So I'm going to go 3-2 Newcastle, and I'm hoping it's our first 3 points. But just thinking about the game, as we talked about before, I think it was before we came on there, that we both lost our first game. Villa have spent quite a bit of money in the summer. A lot of it has been obviously on the back of the Grealish 100 million, but also you've got sort of wealthy backers as well, which I want to touch on in just a little bit. Do you think that a loss on Saturday could mount a little bit of pressure on Dean Smith? Having spent that money, obviously with Grealish going, and then potentially starting the season with 2 defeats against teams that you would probably have expected to beat or be close to beating. Do you think there'd be any additional pressure there?
I think there'll be a little bit. Yeah, I do think there'll be a little bit of pressure. I think he'll come through it, but with the start of the season, like you say, Watford, Newcastle, and then Brentford, if you've got any aspirations to be challenging for top 8, whatever, top 7, you've got to be getting 6 to 9 points out of those games. You've got to. So if he does get a defeat, there will be a little bit of pressure, because coming up after that, we've got the likes of Chelsea and Man United. So it's it's a tough ask, and the games come thick and fast. I know it's all cliches, but there will be a little bit of pressure, and because he has signed these players, and I talked about before, the disruption in pre-season, but lots of teams will have had troubles in pre-season, so you can't really use them as an excuse. He's got to get these guys firing, and as I say, there will be a little bit of pressure. He'll get time because he's done he's got us up, he kept us up, and then he's progressed every single season. So he will get time, but there will be a bit of pressure on him because he has been backed, like you say.
Definitely.
What about you guys? Do you think there'll be a bit of pressure? Well, there's always pressure on Steve Bruce. There's always pressure on Steve Bruce. But what about you guys?
Well, Rich, obviously, with you living in Newcastle, I think you'll probably know as much as anyone. If you picked up an Evening Chronicle, you'd see that there's always mounting pressure on Steve Bruce. And you know what? Even more so now, Newcastle fans can be in the stadium. So
yeah.
I do believe that if, I think there was a little bit of grace on Sunday because it was the first game of the season at home. Fans were just grateful to be back in the stadium watching with a 50,000 capacity. We obviously unveiled Willock right before kickoff, which helped appease the fans as well. It was all very tactical and well played by the club, which we don't normally say. But I do believe, honestly, that if we lose, and especially if we lose by conceding a number of goals, I think the fans will start asking questions, and I mean asking big questions. And the one thing I can say is, and our away fans are the most vocal of the lot. You know, we have an atmosphere in a cauldron of 52,000 at St James's Park, but the away fans, whether it's 2, 1, 2, 3,000, make their feelings known more than anybody. And I think, you know, the Villa fans will know either way on Saturday how Newcastle feel. They'll either be a huge sort of a rapturous applause of relief if we win, but if we don't, there'll be boos, there'll be Bruce out, there'll be Ashley chants, there'll be the lot, and that
hashtag will be trending on Twitter.
Oh, we're instantly as the final whistle goes, the hashtag will be out. You can guarantee you won't even have to search for it, Rich.
Yeah,
that's just how this club works, unfortunately. But the pressure will start to mount, and it's pressure that Steve Bruce hasn't had before, because you know he got away with a lot last season, and it kind of this nicely actually kind of segues on to what I wanted to talk about, because I wanted to talk a little bit about, you know, Steve Bruce. Nicely, a nice picture there.
Nice picture there.
Villa kit. I couldn't quite kind of. I just couldn't take it myself to get a picture of him with the Newcastle strip. So I put him in a Villa one, and he was battered and bruised there. And I think that's how he'll feel, you know, come Saturday afternoon if we don't win this game. I don't know if you're aware, on BBC Newcastle tonight at 6:00, he was on a talking, an open sort of questioning with the fans for an hour. I don't know if you managed to catch that, or you were aware.
No, I was aware, because one of the podcasts I was on earlier, that one of the lads was on it who'd asked him a question. I think it was about him. I think he'd asked him about why he always talks the other teams up and talks Newcastle down.
Yeah.
So
that was Daniel. That was Daniel, I think, from True Faith. I know him well because I do a little bit of work with True Faith too. So, and it was a great question. And this is the thing, you know, fair play to him for putting himself in there. But, you know, he already knows going into this game what the fans think and what the fans are concerned. And that was one of them. So it'll be interesting with his presser tomorrow, how he reacts, whether he talks Villa up or whether he talks us up. So, but he's also, you know, his formation, his you know, defensive tactics, his mentality in terms of attacking, all of these things were questioned. The Longstaff brothers, they've not really been given opportunity. There's talks of being a fallout. Steve Bruce is under pressure. He knows it, right? It was the questions were put to him in a polite way, but the fans were meaning what they said when they asked these questions tonight. And all of this builds, it creates an atmosphere. So he has to win. I know it's only 2 games in. He has to get the 3 points. A point is maybe satisfactory, but still probably not enough. You'll still hear a few boos. And it's going to be an interesting one. But you know, like I said, we segue into Steve Bruce. We'll talk to him about him from a Newcastle point of view. You know, what was it like having him at Villa? Because you know, we hear from a lot of fans, a lot of our frustrations that we have with Steve Bruce and the way he's managed our club. You know, the poor training, you know, the poor use of tactics or non-existent tactics from his point of view, you know, playing players out of position, you know, being known as a man manager, but not really having the man management ability, you know, conceding a hell of a lot of goals. All of these things kind of feed in, and we hear from the likes of Hull. We've heard from, you know, 1 or 2 Villa fans, Sheffield United, Sheffield Wednesday. All the same clubs are saying the same thing.
Yeah,
is that what your experience was when he was at Aston Villa?
100%, and it so much so that it gets to the point where you kind of. I think I did a piece for like the True Faith guys before, and it almost gets to the point where. I know you guys won't want people to, but you almost feel sorry for Newcastle fans for having to put up with it, because it's almost like you'll be going to like a Bruce Anonymous meeting with like Sheffield United fans, Sheffield Wednesday fans, and Villa fans and Newcastle fans, because it's almost like a slow death into mediocrity that you seep into. And you've said it all. You know, he's basically a self-preservation manager, and all of the things that he does, like where he talks up the other team, he talks down his own team. He talks about how many injuries he's got. He talks about, you know, the threats from the other team, or how his players are going to try the hardest and bring out all the cliches. It's all to like, it's all, if he wins, then he'll, you know, it's great. It's great that Steve Bruce has won. What a manager he is. And if he loses, it's like, well, he was playing against a good team and he had loads of injuries. It's all self-preservation, and it's all, yeah, it's all for him. It's all for his benefit, or that's how it's perceived. And yeah, you're completely right about the tactical side of it. I mean, there's so many times, you know, Villa had in the Championship the highest budget of any team in the Championship, yet we were still going to teams like Bolton at the time and Hull at the time and playing 5 at the back, playing not to lose instead of trying to go out to win. When if we were 1-0 down with like 60, 70 minutes gone, he'd just bring 3 strikers on and just have no team shape. You know, the coaches who were with him, Agnew and Clements, you were wondering what the hell they were doing. It's just the same stuff. And he's great at getting money out of chairman, and he's great at putting his arm around a player and selling a club to them. But if you're asking him to improve anybody or improve any players, he's not the right man for you. And he's, you know, he's terrible. I don't think he's particularly good for young players, because these days players want to improve and they want to see where they can go in their career. That's what they want to do now. They want to see, like, I'm signing for you. Where can you get me in 5 years' time? And yes, he can sell the dream to them, but actually delivering on it, I'd be very, very doubtful. But bringing Graham Jones in is a bit of a masterstroke, to be honest. And if he can do something, you know, he's a very, very good coach. If he can do something, then, you know, you've got someone there. But in terms of Bruce, it's just the same old. But he's got so many friends in the press that I've heard loads of Newcastle fans on the likes of Talk Sport and all these other channels, and they just get ridiculed, because it's like, well, what do you expect? What do you expect from Newcastle? You know, what are you moaning about? And it's like, it's not that. You pay your money to go and watch a team that actually look like they've been coached, and that he doesn't deliver that.
You know what? That leads into something that Truls put just a minute ago. But does Bruce have a little confidence in our players, or does he drag them down to his level? You know, he said if he didn't write this, he would have forgotten. But it's a great question. You know,
yeah,
it is the case. I mean, the case in point for us is someone like Sean Longstaff, who, you know, under Rafa Benitez was being talked at, you know, potentially partnering someone like Declan Rice for England. And there was a huge battle on at that point, because he plucked him out of the academy and was playing him at a high level. And he was performing at a high level. He had a bad injury to his knee that put him out for 4 or 5 months. But, you know, it's that where Benitez sort of built a player up and created and developed a player. You know, we don't see the same in Steve Bruce. We look at Jamal Lascelles, who's really regressed as a player under Steve Bruce. You know, we look at even the likes of Kieran Clark and you know, Federico Fernandez, the defensive players, Matt Ritchie, for example, who's a great leader, but you know, his ability on the ball and his quality has dropped off. Isaac Hayden doesn't seem the same player. We've lost the level of performance from these players who were really important to us. So Truls have put a great question in there. There's also a good question in here from a relevant question in here from Chris. One of our loaded lads. He put, Richard, did Alex Bruce come out and defend his dad when at Villa? So when the
numerous times.
Okay, right. Okay, so
numerous times.
Can you remember any particular things that he may have said?
Just whenever they got beat, and you know, obviously on Twitter, Villa fans would be like, "What is going on?" Like, you know, things like I've just said. We've got the biggest budget in the league. He hasn't got a clue. Like, you know, we at that point we'd signed Tammy Abraham on loan. We had what's the dad's name from Crystal Palace, the winger, Yannick Bolasie.
Yeah.
You know, we had some amazing players, Jonathan Codger up front at the time as well, and it was like, you know, what is he doing? But yeah, any time anyone criticised him on Twitter, then Alex Bruce would pop his head out and say, you know, what do we expect? Our club, Villa, could have gone out of business in that during that summer, and his dad stayed and all that kind of stuff, and we should be grateful. But you know, he soon went, and Dean Smith came in, and we ended up getting promoted. So he couldn't have been doing that much well.
Exactly, and that echoes the feelings of Newcastle fans, and I think that's why a lot of Newcastle fans have had quite a few run-ins with Alex Bruce, because he's jumped to the defence of Steve Bruce. When we went on a run of, I think, sort of one win in 25 last season, and we were calling for his head at that point, and Alex Bruce is jumping to the defence of Steve Bruce and calling journalists and fans all these different names and all the rest of it, and it just didn't seem right. He was like almost a spokesperson for his dad, and his dad couldn't speak for himself. It was really, really an embarrassing time. But it's a really good question. I wanted to ask that. We've got Statman Keith in the room. Keith Roll, he is the stat man for anything stats related. So Keith, feel free to throw some up on the chat. Any stats relating to Newcastle and Aston Villa. I know he does have some, because when we spoke the other day, he was throwing a couple out there. So I know Statman Keith will have some already, and he's got a question for you, Rich. Actually, how far do you think Dean Smith can take this Aston Villa team if he continues to strengthen the team with the funds from the Jack Grealish sale? Good question.
Yeah, very good question. And as I've said, the three side, the way that they've done it, because you're not going to replace Jack Grealish. You can't. Like, he's a fairly unique player in terms of the way that he plays and what he meant to Villa as a club. But what you can do is, try and strengthen around him. So he's got the goals, the clinical finishing of Ings, he's got the creativity of Buendia, and he's got the pace and direct skill of Leon Bailey. The challenge on Smith is to get them firing. We should have a great defense, with Martinez, Mings, and Konsa as the main sort of defense, and then Matty Cash and Matt Target in the fullback position. So that should be a settled back five. Where I worry about us at the moment is in that midfield area. We really, really, really need a strong, dominant defensive midfielder, and we've been needing that for the last 2 or 3 years, because when we get playing, we are a really good side to watch, but teams can overpower us quite easily. So that is a big sign in for us. So if we can get that player in, I'd say we could push for that, certainly that top 7 position, and maybe be pushing the likes of, probably not quite, but nearly on the likes of Leicester. I don't think we've got the breadth of squad that they've got, because they can bring players in and they can pretty much do the same job as who they're replacing. I don't think we're quite there yet, but I certainly think we can. But if he doesn't get them firing, then I don't think we'll be in any trouble or anything. But I think the expectations might need to be lowered slightly on Smith, and then you're asking, is he the man? Has he taken us as far as he can? Are we then looking at a bigger name, or are we looking at someone else to kind of take Villa to the next level? So yeah, I think it's all dependent on how well he gets these guys firing, and if we can sign a strong defensive midfielder.
No, it's a great point. Really, really good points. And I think someone's asked here, from what I've heard, they've used 95 million of what he has signed. So I think he's referring to 95 million of the Grealish money already. But we'll maybe briefly talk about this. But the ownership are heavily financially backed. Financially back the club. So they've spent some money already, and I'll stick this up. Apologies if you can't see it very, very clearly, but if you look at the wealth table, Aston Villa are sitting 5th on sort of 5 billion in terms of their worth, which is up there with the likes of Leicester, and you've seen Leicester's spending power, Wolves, and you've seen Wolves' spending power. They've got money. They've got money, and you are a club that can go out and spend in addition to that 100 million. So what you're asking for, Rich, is essentially that player that you feel could take you on to the sort of the next level, really.
Yeah, definitely. I think some of the money that we got for Grealish, I think would have been spent had we kept him anyway. I don't think we'd have probably signed Danny Ings, if I'm being honest. But I think Buendia and possibly even Bailey were definitely Buendia was brought in as like a bit of a Ross Barkley replacement, because the Ross Barkley experiment didn't work last season when he came in on loan. So I think he was brought in to complement Grealish and be that extra player in terms of creativity. And then I think maybe Bailey was signed with an eye to keeping Grealish as well. I think Ings was done as a reaction. So in short, the answers, I think money would have been available anyway had Grealish not gone. I think we'd have spent a considerable amount anyway. And you bang on with what you're saying. We've got the Nassif Suarez, who was fifth on that list with 5 billion, but we've also got Wes Edens, who's the joint owner, who's more of the, I would say he's more the strategist, because he's done what he's done with the Milwaukee Bucks. I'm not sure if you know, like with the NBA, he's the owner of the Milwaukee Bucks, and they've just won the NBA title. So,
and his value is not as big, is it? It's
no.
I think is it just under $1 billion?
Yeah. So I think combined they make us something like third or fourth in the Premier League. But in terms of what he's created, in terms of like a strategy for a team that was probably similar ilk to Aston Villa in like the NBA, of kind of a sleeping giant, if you want to call it that, but have then over a longer period of time have progressed to NBA champions. I think he's kind of got that strategy in mind with Villa. So we are an ambitious club, which is why I'm kind of disappointed in a sense that Jack went at the time when he did, because I think we're onto something special, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this is where Newcastle's frustrations are, in that, obviously the PIF can sort of blitz Man City 4 or 5 times over with their wealth, but ultimately we just want an owner that's got a little bit of ambition. So your owners combine probably value of around maybe the 6 billion mark, which is nowhere near the PIF. But just look at how ambitious you've got. You've got a talented European star in Leon Bailey. You've got a goal scorer in Danny Ings. To add to the likes of Ollie Watkins. If we had that sort of signings in the summer, we'd be as confident as you guys are, is that projecting into that top half.
Yeah,
and that's the Newcastle fans' frustration. And I think looking beyond this potential consortium bid is that's what we're looking for now. We're just looking for owners that have got money behind them. Not talking mega monies, the Abramoviches or the Sheikh Mansours, but enough money that they can be ambitious to really take Newcastle to the next level. And seeing Villa there is a lot of envy for sure, because of the signings that you've made and what you've managed to develop. Being so close to relegation, then coming back the last year and a half and making it work. And your trajectory is going up from there. But I wanted to ask this question. We've got a Villa fan. Sorry, go on, Rich. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just before that, I was just going to say, like, there's no reason why you guys can't be. I mean, I'm not blowing Villa's trumpet here, because we could have a season of struggle, but there's no reason why you couldn't be there with the likes of Villa, Everton, West Ham. Like, there's absolutely no reason, and I guess that's where the frustration lies, because you've got everything in place to be there.
We are those clutch of teams, aren't we? You throw Everton in there, you throw Leicester in there with Villa and West Ham. We are that clutch of teams that are just the next rung down from your supposed top 6, and I think that's the biggest frustration for everybody. But I wanted to ask this question, sort of Villa fan in the house, crates of hippos. Villa fan here. One thing that used to drive me mad was Bruce blaming the fans for having unrealistic expectations every time we played poorly. Crazy hippos, we are well in your world, because we have heard that on numerous occasions in terms of unrealistic expectations. I go back to Christmas when we got knocked out of the quarterfinals of the Carabao Cup to Brentford at home, and they played their second team. And I mean, Brentford played their second team, not us, and we still got beat 1-0, and playing down expectations, and it's just embarrassing. So we're currently in the pain that you felt, and we hope that at some point, we're out of that for sure. I'll just go through some other ones. We've got AH Robbins Tour, welcome to the show. Do you think the likes of Douglas Luiz, McGinn, and Sanson are not good enough in that position? Good question.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think they're very similar type of players. McGinn's obviously all action. Luiz, when we came back after the first lockdown, when the season came back, he was phenomenal in that defensive midfield position for like the last 10 games of that season, and was part of one of the big reasons why we managed to stay up. But last season he was very, very in and out, and I think he kind of wants to play in that more advanced kind of number 8 position. Sanson we haven't seen enough of yet, but I think he is more again of a number 8. And if you play McGinn in that number 6 defensive midfield role, you lose a lot of what John McGinn is good at, and he's not a particularly good passer of the ball. He's more, like I say, driving into the box or getting on the end of things in the box and putting himself about higher up the pitch. And Nakamba can do it, but he's just a little bit lightweight, and again his passing lets him down. So Villa fans will tell you we've been crying for this position to be filled for the last 2 or 3 years, and that's kind of what's holding us. It is kind of what's holding us back. So yeah, it's not to say that those 3 players aren't good enough. It's just, I think if they were to play in that defensive midfield position, it takes too much away from their natural game, and it makes them less effective.
No, it's a great point. So it'll be interesting with a couple of weeks left in the window.
Yeah, we'll see. There's loads of names doing the rounds. I think that Anguissa's a one that doesn't go away, the one from Fulham. But I think you guys are interested in him as well.
Right. Any Newcastle fans on the show right now, Anguissa not coming to Newcastle. Very interested. You know there's only one club he's going to. Oh, man. This goes from worst to worst. I know he's not even been in the Fulham squad, has he?
No.
Okay, I was getting my hopes up.
You never know, mate. You never know.
Richard's just crushed our dreams, guys. Anguissa's not coming to Newcastle. It's done. You need to look elsewhere. I'm just going to go through because I'm mindful we've got a few minutes left.
Yeah.
And there's a few questions going up on here. So we've got our lead, our Saudi Arabian Newcastle fan in the house, and part of the Matters crew. Even in our league, great to see you. How is Villa after Grealish's exit? I'm going to swiftly go past that one because we've already talked about Grealish, and I don't want to put Rich through that again because it's
please, I can't. I need to move on from him. It hurts too much.
Definitely. Right, Keith Roll, the stat man, and you know what, Keith? I need you on this show. Okay, I'm going to contact you because he is the man with the stats. In the next few weeks, when we get the other podders on for the other fixtures, I want you to come up with some stats for me and come onto the show and share them. But he's got them on here. Not a positive stat for Newcastle. Have only won 1 of their last 8. Oh my God's sake. Against Aston Villa since 2015. 1 win, 5 draws, 2 defeats. So we might get a point then. Who knows? And Newcastle have only scored 1 goal in their last 5 games at Villa Park. You're killing me, man. Keith, you're killing me. So, look, it's looking rosy for you, Rich. It's looking rosy for you. Look at those stats.
Well, we've only just started to turn it around, to be honest. You guys have had a great record against Villa before that, so it's only been the last few games that we've turned that around. And to be fair, Dean Smith tends to have the Indian sign over Steve Bruce. Like when he was Villa manager and Smith was Brentford manager, we used to dread playing against Brentford because they just used to absolutely batter us off the park. But we've already gone through all the attacking talent, and you just never know, mate. You just never know. With Wilson will be up for it. Willock will be playing. Hopefully for you guys, Willock will be playing. So yeah, you just never know.
Fingers crossed. The only thing I'll go with is that stats are there to be broken. So
exactly, that's it.
I'm trying to hold on to any sort of positivity that we've got. But I'm going to fire through some other ones really, really quickly. We've got our American Geordie in the house, Adam Beckett. Evening. Evening, lads. Great to see you're doing the show on USA Times. I appreciate that, my man. And he's got a question, or is it just a comment? You can go basically position by position with us and Villa, and you'll see where they've invested millions and we've done nothing at all. Very well said. I would 100% agree with that. I know that Villa have got, particularly midfield, like Richie said, where they want to improve, but you've invested a lot heavier than we have to kind of create your squad, and we can only admire that from a distance. But Adam, great to see you on the show, or see you on the chat. Hopefully, we'll have you on the show very, very soon. Go through some other ones. We've got Dino84 with Grealish gone. Will that affect Villa getting the best out of Buendia? Good question.
Yeah, as I said, I thought he was potentially bought to complement Jack Grealish, so it does put a little bit more pressure onto him, and yeah, hopefully it'll bring more out of him. It definitely puts more responsibility onto Buendia's shoulders. It's just, can he start hitting the ground running? I think the benefit is he's played in the Premier League before. So he's not coming into a brand new league, and he's got we have signed the likes of Ings, as I've mentioned before, and Bailey, and we've got Watkins and McGinn and Traore, as players to complement it as well. So it's not just, hopefully we're not just going to be the Emi Buendia 11 as opposed to just the Jack Grealish 11. Hopefully we've got more players to go alongside him.
No, definitely. Great points there. Great points as always. Okay, let's keep going. We've got a last couple before we shoot. Pete and Rich, what is your favourite Premier League goal ever in the new NUFC versus Villa? Mine is the Shearer volley against Schmeichel, the 3-0 win in 2001. I saw that flying around Twitter the other day. It's a hell of a goal. And Joey Barton's goal in the 6-0 win in 2010. Are they already wins against Villa or something? Because I was thinking of the two same goals, Keith. It's like we're thinking the same. But from a Villa perspective, Rich, what's your sort of favourite Premier League goal from a Villa?
I mean, to be honest, like I said before 2 years ago, we struggled to ever get a result against you guys. So I remember Jordan Ayew scoring a cracking goal when both teams were terrible, and I think it was a 1-1 draw, and he scored a cracking goal from about 25 yards into the top corner at St James's. And I think I was in like the 1892 suite. I'd managed to get some tickets and I had to sit on my hands. And I managed to I let out a little cheer and I got a few looks, but I was all right. And then I'd say probably 2 years ago, when Conor Hourihane swung that great free kick in, and I remember Steve Bruce saying, "Move to the left, move to your right, and he just bent it around the wall. So yeah, just more modern ones, to be honest.
I was at the game.
You were, yeah.
I had the view. Yeah, I was in the away end, right at the top tier, with a couple of my mates in there. We had the view where we could see it, and I was screaming to my mates. I was screaming, "He's going to put it there. He's going to put it there." And he puts it there, and I'm just like, I've had enough of this. I was done. But yeah, I mean, that was the day Jack Grealish destroyed us. He destroyed us that day. He was unplayable. But no, some great goals. From a Newcastle point of view, the Shearer goal, the volley against Schmeichel. You know what? I really like the Carroll goal, where he sealed his hat trick as the number 9 on his return. It was a 6-0 game as well. Really good. You know what? I love the Cabaye goal at Villa Park. I don't know if you remember it. I think it's the 2013-14, where he volleys it into the top right hand corner. So left of the dugouts. I think it was in the first half. I think we won 2-0. I think Papi Cisse scored as well. But he just gets the ball, just shifts it right, and I think it was on the volley, just bends it right into the top corner. And the Sky cameras have got the angle where you can just see it rise. Unbelievable finish from Cabaye. And then Ben Arthur at St James's Park.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, funnily enough, with his right foot. So we were 1-0 down. I think it ended up 1-1.
Yeah, as a
We were 1-0
1-1.
down.
Yeah.
He's on the
I think we
left-hand
had Darren
side.
Bent up front that season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He just cuts in. Everyone expects him to go on his left. Cuts in on his right. Boom, arrow, top corner.
Yeah.
Some great goals either way. So yeah, I like that question, Keith. Top man. We've only got a couple of minutes, so we'll fly through these. Keith says, and no one sure it is then this weekend. Oh my God. I hope not. Well, if it gets us a point, then I may take it. We'll see how we're playing. Shows you where the two clubs are that made the move to sign Tuanzebe, and we've not moved a position. We absolutely needed help. Yeah, absolutely right. I agree with that, Adam. Can we talk about Shearer's cushion volley? We're on it. And then he said, of course, the 6-0. Brilliant stuff. Cheers, Keith. Great show, Pete and Rich.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you very much, Dino. First time I've ever seen a hat-trick at a game was Dwight York.
Yeah.
You know what?
He was on the losing side as well, wasn't he?
4-3. I remember watching that on Sky, and there was one of the goals that he scored where he made a jinking run, and I don't know how he managed to score it. It was from a tight angle, but Dwight York that game was unplayable. He was fantastic. Truls, great show. All had fun. Fantastic, good man. What was it? It wasn't the screamer, but I always remember John Carew being allowed to take a penalty, seeing off his hat trick and nearly putting a hole in the back of the net.
I think that was another one we lost 4-3 as well. I think it was Ashley Young's first game for Villa. We had Young and Carew up front.
He was a good striker. He was, John Carew.
Yeah.
He went to you from, I think it was from Valencia.
Yeah.
I really liked him as a player. And then Chris says, wow. Well, at this point, I just want to say thanks to Rich for coming on. Just remind me of your predictions again.
2-1 Villa.
2-1 Villa. And I said 3-2 Newcastle.
3-2 Newcastle.
I'm looking for goals. I'm going to say Callum Wilson's going to score. I'm going to say Miguel Almiron's going to score. And I'm going to say Joe Willock is going to get that record to continue. I think he's I'm going to say Willock's going to score the winning goal. So there are predictions there. Chris said, well done, lads. So he only wrote one word of his so he's had to rewrite it again.
Oh, okay.
Great to have you on, Rich. Best of luck for the season after this weekend. I have to agree with that. I've got to be honest. But Rich, you know what? It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on the show. And you know what? When it's the reverse fixtures, if you're happy to come on, I'll be more than pleased for you to come on again.
Anytime, mate. Thanks for having me on. It's been a pleasure, mate. Thanks for inviting me on.
No problem. And if you win on Saturday, you better hide. Keep your hide in your house at Newcastle. People are going to come looking for you. No worries. But guys in the chat, thank you for all your questions. Really, really, really appreciate it. It's been an absolute pleasure with Rich. And as always, we do love playing away. Good night, guys.